Hi, everybody, and welcome. One moment, we're going to get our special guest on the line. Welcome, everybody. As we're waiting, please drop in the comments where you're watching from. Hello, Katie.
Hi, to meet you.
So nice to meet you, too. How's it
I,
going?
Good. Everything's great. I've heard great things about you, and I've seen the other two interviews, and you're super great at what you do.
Oh, thank you. We're excited to be running this project and getting women filmmakers spotlighted all around the world, and we're honored to have you with us today, too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think this project and the whole movement together is so necessary and it's so incredible. I'm just super excited and honored to be part of it and be here today and have this discussion with you. I'm super excited.
Awesome. So, yeah, we're gonna dive in and get started as people the ticker keeps going up. People are coming in. As you guys are coming in to watch, feel free to leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from, and so excited to see you all here. My name is Morgan Taylor, and I'm here with the Women in Film Project, and we're all about telling inspiring stories of accomplished filmmakers all around the world. As you guys are here, there's a Q&A box, and I want to give you a quick reminder that throughout our whole conversation, if you have a question, we want to hear it. So drop your questions in, and we'll be asking questions throughout our conversation. So, Katie, how do you say your last name? I want to make sure I get it right.
So it's Münch with the umlauts, but it gets so mixed up all the time. It's either Munch, Minch, or Munch, but for
But it's
Munch.
Münch.
Yeah.
Münch. So Katie Münch, welcome. You're a creative director and editor based in Los Angeles, and I would just love if you could tell everyone on this call who doesn't know you yet a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to say thank you to everybody who's joining. I see a lot of people are still joining, so thank you. So I am a videographer, freelance videographer, based in Los Angeles. I've been doing this officially probably like 4 years now. Unofficially, I've done it growing up. You know, I was always that kid in the family who had the little camcorder and edited little family videos on trips and adventures. But 4 years ago, I made an actual career out of it. So yeah, I moved out to LA about 2.5 years ago to fully pursue it. I do a lot of music videos, commercials, social media content, but I kind of branch out to a bunch of different stuff as well. So I can play around with a little bit of everything, like short films, real estate, things like that. But over the last year, I've been trying to lock myself more into directing and editing, as that's my favorite part of the whole aspect of videography and film. But yeah, I just do a little bit of everything and still working my way up the ladder, but it's been a good time so far.
Amazing. And that's the way to work up. And I love that as you're getting more focused, you're doing more of what you love
Yeah, absolutely.
too.
Just trying to lock into that one thing and be able to hire more DPs. Like I have this DP, her name's actually Katie Ann, which is really funny. But she's so far been one of my favorite people to work with because she just takes over the whole aspect of cinematography, and I can sit there and direct and then finish the edit, and it's really fun to be able to collaborate with her and another female as well. So
Awesome. So let's take a step back. I want to hear about how you got your start in the industry. Are you originally from Los Angeles, or what drew you to filmmaking, and how did you get your start?
yeah, so I'm actually originally from Northern California, super small town. It's like an hour north of Napa. That'll be like the most, yeah, everybody seems to know Napa. But I grew up there, and then because it was a super small town, there wasn't really anybody doing what I was doing. And so growing up, I was always the person on, like I said, family trips and things with a little video camera or my GoPro. I'd just be running around filming our trips or things around the house, and then I'd start to edit, and I just found a love and passion for doing that. And then I remember my dad, he's a huge fan of Star Wars, and he would always be in his game room watching Star Wars on his days off. And he would watch the behind the scenes afterwards. And it always caught my eye just to go back there and just watch the behind the scenes of how it all came together and how they created this. And so from there, I kind of started thinking like maybe I can do something like that myself. And so yeah, I started filming and editing around my small town. And then at some point I realized nobody else is really doing this. So why don't I try to get clients and actually make it a career? And so I would get clients, I would start doing photos and videos. And then at some point, like 2 years after kind of figuring that out, I was like 17 when I got my first camera. I'm 22 now, so like 5 years ago. So at 17 or 18, I ended up getting hired by the high school I graduated from to do a project called Every 15 Minutes, which was like a really huge project for me. It was like a 24-hour turnaround time, and
Nice.
it was super incredible. And for me, that like really sparked this thing of like, I can totally do this as a career. It's not just a passion. And so I went to a junior college up north for 2 years, and that's where I ended up meeting my mentor in a film class. I got my AA in film studies. And throughout meeting him and his wife, they have been super incredible and helpful and bringing me onto sets and different projects and things like that. And then in 2019, I decided I got to make the move to LA because nobody in that small town is doing what I'm doing, and LA is all about what I'm doing. So I moved out to LA right before COVID hit. And so I got a little bit of set work and things like that and clientele for like the first few months. And then when COVID hit, it was a little rough, but I was able to transition more over to editing during that time, which was actually really cool. So not to go off on a whole tangent, sorry.
No, you're good.
But
That's what these conversations are for. And I think that that's important to note too. Like COVID hit everybody in the film industry. And how do you make that pivot? And I think editing, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, what can you do remote to still keep moving projects forward and
yeah,
pick up skills along the way?
yeah. And it's all about, it's hard because with COVID, I mean, it can be hard in general, but with COVID, it's like, how do you go out and then meet people? And how do you have that face-to-face interaction of meeting clients or meeting other people you want to work with? But, with social media too, having gone through COVID with social media, you are still able to meet people online, have phone conversations, still work on projects together. And so I think that kind of helped push me in the direction of editing, which I've always loved in general. And so in a way, it was sort of, I want to say a blessing and a curse because COVID is not great, right? But
Right.
you can make the best of it. So
Yeah, definitely a pivotal time for people in all industries and seeing how we adapt and what, as you said, definitely not an ideal situation
right.
for anybody, but how do we keep moving forward?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned meeting your mentor. Tell us a little bit about that and working with other people in the industry who kind of brought you into this.
Yeah, so my mentor was the biggest thing for me that really helped me get on sets, and just the amount of knowledge and experience I gained from the second I met him and his wife to now, it has been so incredible, and I'm so grateful for it. So I was at school at the junior college I went to. I was in this film class, and they sent out an email, and they were like, "Hey, we have a cinematographer coming in to speak, but we need somebody to pick him up from the airport." So of course I was like, jumped on it, and I'm all, sure, I'll do it. And so my mom and she came with me. We went and picked him and his wife up from the airport, and we spent like 2 hours in the car with them, just talking and learning about each other. And he went to his discussion that he was doing for the class, and after that we ended up hanging out with them again and talking, and they seemed to really like me, and we loved them. Of course, we all got along really well, and they asked if Dean would like to mentor me. His name's Dean Cundy, by the way. They asked if he could mentor me, and I of course was through the roof ecstatic and excited, and I was like, absolutely. And from there, that was in 2019 or 2018, and from there he, over the summer, 2019 of the summer, he had a class. He was teaching a master class in France at the ISPRA Film School, and he wanted an on-site editor, which for me is super exciting for many reasons, but also it's
Wow.
got to do editing for Dean Cundy, which was incredible. And so my mom and I went out to France with them. Tisha is his wife's name. Her and my mom are close friends now, which is really nice. And Dean and I got to go work together. And I edited this project for him that he taught the students. And after that, he's just been super helpful teaching me on set knowledge and talking to people and working for other people and what it's like to be on set. And so that's just, I think, for me, been such a huge step in my career and what I'm doing, because it's taught me so many different aspects of the industry from somebody who's actually in the industry. So that's been really awesome.
Amazing. Yeah, and the opportunity too to even work on film in a foreign country. What was that like? Was it because he was teaching a class, but what kinds of projects were you working on in France?
Yeah, so it was super incredible because we got to meet different types of filmmakers from, Europe, and their style of filmmaking is a little different from our style, which is really cool. And so you kind of learn from each other. And it was like a week-long class, or like 5 days, and he went through different things of them with lighting. So we did a day of lighting and how to light a subject. And then by the end of it, we ended up shooting a silent short film, and we're going to do audio, but we don't speak French fluently enough.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Um, so yeah, so we ended up doing a short film, and it was kind of like, it's called The Art Thief, and so it was kind of like this suspense filled little scene of like 5 minute scenes. And this couple is at dinner, they end up getting into a fight, and then they end up leaving in a car, and so we had some green screen work of driving with the car. And then it's just supposed to be, it cuts off and you don't really know what happens, but it's kind of like a killer murder scene type of thing. but but yeah, so we just were teaching them how to work with a green screen in a car, and how to light certain subjects, and how to bring the suspense even though it's a silent short film. So that's what we ended up doing throughout the week.
I love that. And what a testament to the universal language of film. Even if you speak different languages, you're still communicating the story through
Right.
visuals.
And that was the cool part too, is I met so many people from it, and friends I still talk to this day, which is really cool. And they're out there doing their film stuff, and I'm doing mine. And even though there's that language barrier, we can still like understand each other through film, right? So it's really cool. It's like film is its own language.
It definitely is. Awesome. So you mentioned that as you're growing and doing more of what you love, uh, freelancing, do you have your own production company, and what drew you to start doing that and working for yourself as well?
Yeah, so I do have my own production company. It's called KT Visuals Media. I am the one who runs it right now and does the whole thing as myself, but I will hire other DPs and other people to come on with me and help me with my shoots and whatnot. I started it because I have always just loved the idea of working for myself. I'm totally not opposed to working for somebody else, but I love the idea of freelance. And my mom actually also started her own business, and so did my brother. So at one point, I got the idea of like, that sounds so nice to have your own schedule and pick up your own clients and things like that. But I think part of it too, in the last few years of like what I've been wanting to more so turn it into, is just bringing more women into it, of course, bringing it bringing more diversity into film in general, and making it more inclusive, because I know other people have talked about this as well, but it's just like, most of it used to be a man's world and a man's, environment of film. And I think it's really awesome where we are now, because we are making that progress, but I do still think that there's a lot of progress that needs to be made. So I think it's what I want to do is eventually, bring more women on set and bring different diverse people on set to be able to come together and continue changing the world of film.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about this before on here, but I think it's a beautiful theme to continue, that there is a lot of responsibility on those who are higher up in the filmmaking, or those who have the production companies, to hire and bring people along so that everyone can be a part of that journey from
Absolutely.
all walks of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I'm curious, as you are finding clients or finding the stories that you want to be a part of and tell, are there certain types of stories that you're drawn to, or certain things that you like to tell as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I kind of dip my toes in a little bit of everything, But I think what comes out of it for me is that I enjoy making the project what the person is hoping for. You know, like everybody does. Like that's what you want to do for the client, is make them exactly what they want, but also have the creative direction with it. I think for me, the biggest part that comes with it is bringing those certain people on with me to help make that client's vision come true. If it's something like a short film, there's obviously a direction we want to tell a deeper story to. But if it's things for me right now, I've been doing a lot of music videos and commercials and things
Got
like
it.
that that are more specific to what the client wants. But for me, so then in that situation, I'll just take certain people with me to make that what the client wants. And it's then becomes that collaborative experience, which is really fun. And you meet new people and you get to work with them from there on. So for me, it's really about that collaboration part of it that I love.
Yeah, it's definitely a collaborative experience, right? Because you're always working with new and interesting people.
Right. Yeah.
Well, awesome. So I guess this is my next question is sort of in two parts because you do have your the entrepreneurial side where you have your own company, but you're also doing an amazing job of editing and working as well. What is the most challenging parts of those things that you do? And this could be, the most challenging parts of being an editor, what's very challenging there, but also having your own production company.
Yeah, so I think for me, when it comes to having my own company and also being an editor, I think the hardest part is remembering to balance everything out. And I know that this doesn't come from a technical standpoint of literally sitting down and editing, but I think a balance in life has to do with everything, and especially in your workplace and what you're doing, whether that is production or you're on sets or whatever. I think for me is it's learning how to balance out how many projects I take, if I can finish them all in the time frame, not to overwhelm myself. There are a lot of times where I'll sit down and I'll say yes to a bunch of projects because I want to be part of all of them. And I do end up finishing them, but the amount of stress that I go through and have in my head while I'm doing it because I took so much on, I'm learning to kind of step back and balance out what I can take. And sometimes if there's opportunities that have to be missed or passed on to somebody else, that's okay because it's helping your mental health at the end of the day. So I would say a balance in life and a balance in the work that I do is probably the biggest challenge, but it's really important for everybody to figure out a balance for themselves.
All right, I agree with that, especially as people who are ambitious and passionate about what they do. Sometimes it's hard to say no because you want to work on all of the stories and do all of the things.
Right.
And sometimes it's saying no, sometimes it's saying not now. I'd love to work on it later, but sometimes you have to say no and kind of give that to somebody else who could maybe in the time frame and with the mental capacity to do a better job in the moment.
Right, exactly. Because at the end of the day, if you take on so many projects and then you're only putting 10% into each one, then you're not, I feel like that's an easy way to sort of either lose the passion for it because you're just trying to knock out the work at that point, or you just kind of, you don't make the client happy at the end of the day, you know? So it's,
Right.
want to be able to put 110% effort into everything you do because that's only going to help you move up, but also keep your happiness there and keep you stable mentally. So I think it gets really overwhelming. And I think that's something a lot of people hopefully can relate to because I think we all go through needing a balance in life.
Right. It's like, how do you, as an a creative entrepreneur, battle burnout? And it's
Right.
all around. It sneaks up on you. And I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people do relate to that. I'm curious if you could think of anything that's more specific too, of how do you combat that? Besides just saying no to things, are there other ways to get rid of that, get some
Yeah.
things off your plate?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to stress in that situation, those situations of working and being a freelance editor or videographer, I think what helps too, what I've been doing a lot is trying to find a couple of people that I really like to work with consistently and who are open to doing, say, cinematography. If I want to be the director and editor, can I take on these 4 projects? I can't do them all myself if I'm shooting, directing, and editing. But if I hire somebody else to go shoot it and maybe somebody else to go edit one and I direct 2 of them, it kind of spreads the work out and then you're all again collaborating at the end of the day. So if you can make maybe not like for me with my business, I've always felt like I'm just going to do everything. I'm the sole person, I'll do all of it. But I've learned over time very quickly that like that's not always possible. That's the fun part of filmmaking too, is working with other people. So if you can pass certain jobs off to other people who actually enjoy that aspect, then everybody's giving 110% effort into each aspect of it. And then your project just comes out that much better because you're not putting a little bit of effort into each thing. So I think for sure is like working with people, spreading the work out, saying no sometimes, but you know,
Yeah, I think delegation is so powerful. And an objection that I hear about that a lot of times is like, but I don't want to let go. Or like if the project is your baby, you're like, no, but I want to work on it. How powerful is just that letting go or passing it along to someone you can trust?
and honestly, it's so hard to find that one person who works very similarly to you because we all work so differently. And that's the magic of film because one editor does something completely different with the same film than another editor would. But I think when you find that one person, like the one DP or the one director that you can trust with your vision with, it feels so good to be able to give it to them and just say, hey, this is the shot I want. Can you do that? Boom, they got it. They know exactly what you want. Or, hey, what do you think we could do with this over here because I'm not really sure. And then they come up with something great that you love. Like it feels so good to find somebody you trust. But then the hard part is going through the work to finding somebody that you trust to work similarly, you know? So it's like, it's kind of a journey, but once you find it, it's like, you don't want to let that person go.
Absolutely. Yeah. How have you found people on your journey? Is it networking? Is it classes? How have you met the right people that you've worked with in film?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the people that I've met honestly have either been through social media or word of mouth. Or yeah, word of mouth in the sense of like this one person who I work with all the time, we're working on this show called Eating While Broke. He actually brought me onto that as an editor. And him and I met because I was shooting this music video for somebody and I posted on Instagram, hey, I need somebody to come shoot behind the scenes. Does anybody know anyone who's available? And so one of my friends, which is our mutual friend, she messaged me and said, hey, there's this guy named Jared. He's really great. Hit him up. So I hit him up. We worked together. He did a great job. And then months later, he was like, hey, I need an editor for this. Do you want to join us on this project called Eating While Broke? And so him and I have built that great relationship too, where he prefers cinematography and I prefer editing and directing. And so for him, it's like I can pass something on to him or he can pass things on to me. And then like my DP, I was talking about Katie Ann. I met her, I want to say a similar way too with the social media route of like asking for somebody. And then one of our mutual friends or people that we worked with connected us together. And then we shot a music video together as well. So I think social media is so powerful. It can be such a negative place, but it can be so powerful at the same time to be able to connect with people, especially depending what city you're in and or what state.
Do you actively look for people, or at least when you were looking for people like this, were you searching for people and looking through their profiles, or was it more, what was that process of actually searching through social media? Because like you said, there's so much there, some negative, some positive, but were you
Yeah.
like searching filmmakers in LA who work on these types of projects? What was that process like?
Yeah, pretty much. It like at first it can be so overwhelming because social media has an endless amount of content and information and people. And so it's kind of just like for me, I went on Instagram and I typed in LA or LA videographers and things like that. And I started looking and then I kind of gave up on that because it's just there's so much there. Like, where do you start? And then I posted something on my story. I got a few DMs back and tried to reach out to those people. But then from there, it's kind of one of those things where you maybe find a filmmaker that you really like, and then you start going through their content or who they're following to see if there's other people that you might have a better chance of being able to work with. So it can be kind of a nightmare, but at the same time, it's also a blessing to have social media because you can meet people. And like today, like I wouldn't have been able to be part of this if we didn't have social media, right? So
Right,
definitely,
right. We're in two different coasts right now, and yet this is happening.
right? I know.
I saw that as a beautiful thing that happened at the start of the pandemic, as well as online people connecting and finding ways to connect and be together. There were film festivals that were uh, you know, maybe in Los Angeles and people from all over the world were tuning in. So I feel like the industry has made a way where, as you said, the magic is those collaborations and those connections. And through
Right.
social media and these avenues, we found a way to keep doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's what it is, just find a way to work with what you're given. And that applies to almost anything, right? Like if you're given a project that you don't like, figure it out, make it work. Or, if you're overwhelmed, you got to work with what you're given, I think. I think that's one of the biggest things.
It's that diligence, that determination, that not giving up.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just, and if when you have the passion for it and or the creative mind, you don't want to give up. Even if you hit that block, we all go through that moment where it's like, what am I doing? Is this what I want? I don't know what to do. But then you find something that sparks that passion again, and then you're off running because it's just that's what you love. And so you figure out how to make it work and get through those moments.
Amazing. And I love that. And in that spirit, we talked a little bit about your kind of your career up to this point, um, which I love just how far you've come in the 5 years and moving to Los Angeles and working with your mentor and in France. What are some of your dreams that you're not giving up and you're moving towards going forward?
Thank you. My I would say probably 5-year plan, but really we could call it a 10-year plan. My future plan is to eventually be an editor for a feature film. That is like something on the top of my bucket list that I just really want to do in life. And I think it'd be really awesome if I could do that as my career, but also right now in this moment, I'm trying to figure out what direction I want to go exactly because of doing a bunch of everything. I'm kind of learning the certain things that I like the most. But definitely like my 5-year plan would be editing a film for Warner Brothers, a feature film. I think that's one of the biggest things I've always wanted to do. So got to work toward that.
I love it. And here at the Women in Film Project, we believe there's no dream too big. So
Absolutely.
that's amazing. And I'm excited in that 5 years, 10 years to see your name on those credits.
Thank you.
So I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah.
I think it'll be something I'm working toward and something I can reach.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's good to have goals. And I read this in, I forget where, but sometimes it's like when you have a clear goal and you write it down, it's easier to go after it and attain it. It's less wishy-washy. You have a direction to go towards.
No, it's so true. And I always talk about all the time. My biggest thing is manifest and talk it into existence because it sounds like a joke, like, oh, I'm going to talk this into existence. But the more you think about it and the more you actually speak it out loud, it's like this goal that is so actually attainable that it's not just like, well, I guess I might do this or maybe I could do this someday. If you say that, it's kind of like you're putting your foot halfway through in the door. But if you say that this is something I'm going to do and I can do it and you stick to that and you fully believe that it is something you can and you will do. And so I think the biggest thing for me is just talk it into existence, manifest it, and then of course you do the work leading up to it, but you can't doubt yourself in anything in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's wonderful advice because a lot of our listeners are people who are starting out in the industry. They have a dream. Um, Maybe that dream is in the form of a goal. Maybe it's not yet. It's just, I want to make films and I'm
Right.
not sure what that is yet. But I think that's a good uh, advice for anybody in a creative field. If you have a dream, figure out something that you can reach for. I
Right.
do believe our words have power. So when you say that, just as you said, you can go after that dream and make it happen by
Yeah,
doing the work.
it's so true, exactly. And that work will come if you feel like you don't have opportunities, but you're believing in yourself and you're doing the work on the side to learn and figure it out, the opportunities will come. And so it all just kind of it'll come to where it needs to if you're putting in your self-work on learning and trying to meet people and reaching those goals. And the thing with the goals too that I recently heard somebody say this somewhere, but it's helped me a lot. Instead of having this huge goal at the top, like for me, like I want to make a movie someday, have small goals that you can reach and accomplish to get to that point. Because if you're just trying to reach this, you're going to feel like everything's a failure. But if you feel like you have 10 smaller goals to be able to reach this, then you work your way up and you accomplish one at a time, then it's going to feel really good that you're actually feeling like I accomplished this. I'm one step closer to my bigger goal. But at the end of the day, you still want to reach that goal, right? So yeah, it's just, I feel like there's so much mental like
Yeah,
things that you need to know and get through, and we're all figuring it out, but it's really just like a lot of it's in your head and then you put the work in. And so I think that's one of the biggest things for people starting out too.
I agree. And just one more point that I thought of, um, as say it's smaller goals leading to a larger goal, or even if they might all seem big in your mind. When you're starting out, you grow with confidence with every step, with every little goal that you attain.
So
You
true.
suddenly have more confidence in yourself to go after the next goal. And once you get 4 or 5 goals up, you're like, your confidence in the bigger goals, they don't seem that far away. They're
Right.
suddenly more reachable because you've allowed yourself to grow by going after these smaller sub goals first.
That's so true. And I love that you said that, because to go with that too, it's like you accomplish one thing, you gain that confidence, and it also comes from the fact that you have now learned something new or you practice something. And every single project you do, you're going to learn something new, whether it's something on set or something when you're editing. Like there's always something new to learn. And so you are constantly picking up new things to add to your brain of what you know. And then that brings confidence too, because now on your next shoot, if somebody says, hey, can you do this? Before you might have said, I have no idea how to do that. But now you did this project, so you know how to do something like that. So it's that matter of growing, and it's that gaining the confidence because you're constantly growing and learning.
Yeah, confidence in yourself, confidence in your skill set.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's just confidence in your ability to figure it out. I don't have the answer, but maybe you can like say I don't have the answer, but I can research, I can figure it out, I can ask somebody, I can and then you're knowing that you're capable of doing that too helps you
Right.
get forward. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the figuring it out and making it work. It all comes together. I love it.
I love it. It's yeah, because I think this is a big important topic because sometimes we have dreams, but it's like how do we actually go after them so they're not just a wishy-washy thing that you give up on. And I think sometimes um, there will be more people going after something when they're encouraged. So if we want to see more women in the film industry shining bright, doing their thing, um, living their best life, making movies, it's like we're here to form that community, come alongside and encourage that growth.
Right. It's so true. And it's like you said at the beginning of the conversation too, like the people who are at the top right now, they have this need, or I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they are kind of looked on as like people look up to them. So people look
It's
up
like
to
a
them.
responsibility.
Right. Responsibility. Thank you. So they have this
You got it.
responsibility. And there are, I'm sure, people out there who don't entirely realize that, but then there are a lot of powerful women out there, especially right now, who are coming up, and then they are helping women who are just starting out, or just people in general who are starting out. They're bringing people on sets and they're taking time to teach people how to do certain things. And I think it's really awesome that they're taking time to inspire people, so that it's not just some new filmmaker trying to figure out, well, what do I do? I have no one to look up to. And so I think it's really cool, again, with the Women in Film Project. It's creating this community, and as people continue to move up, everybody can start to bring each other with them. And so I think that's really powerful in itself.
Yeah, we're climbing mountains, and as we do, we're turning around and giving your hand to the next person and
Right.
climbing together.
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do think mentorships are so important, and that's kind of the spirit of what we're doing here at the Women in Film Project. But even you were saying how much having a mentor has helped you grow. Is that something that you recommend for people starting out in the industry? And yeah, let's talk about I have things to ask you about mentorship too.
Yeah. I would say I do absolutely recommend it. It's before I had my mentor, I never even thought about it. To me, I was just like, I'm going to go to film school. I'm going to figure it out. This will fix everything because I don't know what to do. I only went to the 2 years at the junior college. I didn't actually get into film school and decided not to try to go to film school after that. But when I got my mentor, I realized this is so incredible. How did I get so lucky? Because now I have somebody who has had 70 plus years of experience in the industry, 60 plus years, and he's done these incredible movies, and who better to learn from than somebody who has that experience. And so learning from somebody directly who can tell you about it, but not only tell you about it, they can bring you on and show you how to do these things. You can ask them directly, how would you do this? If I was shooting an interview, what would you do? If I wanted to shoot this car scene, how would you do it? And you have somebody to just talk to and communicate with, which I think is so beneficial, because we can always Google things, right? And I'm sure a lot of us YouTube to death on how to do things. But sometimes it's like almost a nightmare to find the exact thing you're looking for, or everybody has so many different techniques. Like, who do I learn from? What do I pick? So I think having a mentor in anything, but especially film, is so beneficial, because it gives you that person to directly learn from and ask anything you need to ask. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. If you ever have the opportunity, or somebody comes into your life, or you meet somebody and you're either offered that, or you guys are close and maybe it's a question you ask, like, hey, are you open to mentorship? I would love to learn from you. I think that is an awesome route to go. I think whether you have film school or not, I think it's a great route to go for anybody.
Yeah, I think that the world is a very good school as
Right.
well. In the industry, a lot of times, even those who go to film school learn, it's completely different when you're on a set or you're working on a project. That hands-on learning is a really good path for a lot of people.
That's so true.
Um, yeah, just learning by doing or by taking the opportunity. And it made me think, even how you said you met your mentor by volunteering to drive a filmmaker to the airport, or pickups from the airport. And sometimes it's just seeing an opportunity and jumping and seeing where it
Exactly.
leads.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big thing too, is it's like when opportunities come, and it may not even, I mean, in that situation, it's, to me, obviously an opportunity. Of course, I'm going to jump on it. But sometimes things come around or come into your life that you don't necessarily think is something you need, or, oh, what's the point of it? But it could be life changing. Like any opportunity, if you're even thinking about should I or should I not, I would say just do it. If you're able to do it, go for it, because anything can come out of any situation. And like that, for example, like, he sent this, my teacher sent this email out to 5 different classes full of 45 kids. And to me, the second I opened it, I was like, I don't know, should I take this? Can I even go pick them up? And I was like 18, and I was like, Mom, can you come with me? And it's one of those situations where it's like, if you're the person who just jumps on, and I replied, I was like, yeah, I'll do it, and then figure it out later. It ended up working out, and now it's this incredible opportunity of a mentorship that I have. But yeah, I don't know exactly where I was going with that. I think I was just trying to say to jump on opportunities, and things will come after you do it.
I think there's a lot there to be said of the forward motion
Right.
of going after things. And we were talking a little bit about the balance too, of knowing when to rest or delegate, but at the same time, it's still moving forward and moving towards something. And maybe that's kind of the theme of today's conversation, is to move, to go after, to manifest, to a dream. How does it go? There's a phrase like a dream is just a dream unless it has a direction, or
Yeah,
something like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think let's make that the theme of today, because that's how I feel all the time. That's what I'm always thinking about. And it's moving forward, pushing yourself, gaining that confidence, finding the balance. And from there, you can go nowhere but up. You're going to have your ups and downs of life, but if you're so focused and passionate and you keep going, there's nowhere to go but up.
And I do think those, not to lead anyone astray, those downs do happen.
Absolutely.
Uh, but I'm not sure what it is for you. For me, sometimes that's then surrounding yourself with the right people to then help you through, so you're not alone when you're climbing up the mountain. We're still helping each other out. But when those downs happen, to as you turn and help other people can turn and help you.
Yeah, of course. It's having that unit of people around you, and just the core people, and the people, either you love working with, or your best friend, or a parent or a sibling or something. It's just, it's somebody to go to be like, hey, this sucks right now. Nothing's working out for me. I don't know what to do. Or honestly, sometimes a good cry helps. Like, not just, I mean, sometimes if you're just by yourself and you're going through it, cry it out, take a break. Like, don't push yourself to keep working in that moment, because it's all mental health at the end of the day too. Maybe meditate, go on a walk, get some outside time. It's just, it's taking that time for you too to be able to rest and reset, because if you just keep pushing past it, it's only going to feel like it's getting worse at some point.
Yeah, I love the mental health aspects in filmmaking and in business because it's important to bring that into these, into our communities and let people know even if you're working alone on a film by yourself, you're not alone. There's a community here that is here for you. And something that I heard recently that I love, because sometimes we feel like, oh, too tough, or we don't want to cry it out, or it's like, oh,
Right.
I have to be strong. When even crying, there is a release. It's like the toxins leaving your body. It's like the negative thing kind of
Yeah.
getting out. So there is something of, um, because we're here together going towards our goals, uh, the ability to not be strong all the time is
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. And I think that is such a big thing. I know for me personally, I do have a hard time just crying it out sometimes, because I'm like, no, I can work through it. It's fine. So it's easier said than done. But but it is good to remember. This is hard to think about too, especially in those moments, but just to take a minute to remember that you really aren't alone. Like, you may feel in that moment like you're by yourself and everything's coming down and crashing down and your computer's not working and the edit's not right and all this stuff. But if you take that breath and go on a walk, or take a minute to just think and realize there are so many other people who, even in this moment, are probably going through something similar, and they're feeling the same way I'm feeling. And everybody's, hopefully we all work to figure out, how do I get through this one moment right now? Focus on the now instead of everything in your future and in your day and in your life. If you just take that time for you, and again, it's all mental health, you take that moment for you to figure it out, it's only going to help you the next day and from then on. And so it's all about working on yourself, loving what you do, and all of that comes together into one aspect.
Yeah, the moment, the now, and in the
Right.
spirit of the journey, it's one step at a time.
Exactly. Yep. Like that ladder we talked about too. You got to focus on what's in front of you, not what's however far ahead of you.
And I hear that helps with, I'm just glancing at some questions that are coming in here. I hear that it helps with the anxiety too. Like depression, a lot of times you're dealing with the past and you're dwelling on something that happened before that maybe you can't deal with because it's past.
Right.
Anxiety, you're worrying about the future and what maybe you can't deal with at the moment because it hasn't happened yet. And staying in the present sometimes helps find that balance too.
Yeah, it's so true. Talking about that too, actually, my brother and my partner both work in mental health. So I don't know if that's why I'm so all about that too, but I think it's really important. But they both always talk about, don't future trip. And sometimes when I get in these moments of just like everything's falling apart, nothing's working, I'm almost always thinking about, well, my day tomorrow's crazy. And next week I have this and I have 5 other shoots and I don't know if I can take all these edits. And it stresses me out so much in that moment that I just feel like I can't do anything, but I'm still trying. And so for me, it's like, to remember to don't future trip, but also don't beat yourself up over something that you didn't do too well on the last edit that you already sent in, because you sent it in, you move on, you move forward, and you learn from everything that you do. And so it's a matter of
Yeah,
future trip, don't past trip, but I don't know what that saying is called, but stick now and
it's
think.
us. Yeah, stay in the now. It's a
And
good summary of that, maybe.
yeah,
I think it's powerful. And I think it's, if that's what your siblings do, that's wonderful work. I must say, it's important.
yeah, no, absolutely. I learned so much from them too. It's just, it's crazy. But I
Awesome.
think,
Yeah. Oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add too. I think mental health and film are two that go together so well, because it's like you take it to the aspect of. I mean, I guess this is random. I don't know if we have time, but you
Go
take
for it.
aspect of like coloring films. Like, what is this moment? Is it a dark, scary moment that's going to have like a cold blue tone? Or is it this happy, sunshine filled moment with light rays and a yellowish tone? Like, so it all relates to film. And then it relates to your work in film as well as a human being. So I think the two go really well and are very important to have knowledge of.
I agree. I agree. There's a couple of questions that I'm going to go through. For everyone else who's listening, we have a question and answer box. Feel free to drop some questions. We'd love to answer them for you. So here's one. When you're watching your own work back after it's done, how does that make you feel?
That's a good question. I think it definitely ties into our whole conversation because sometimes there's a project that I do, and you know, when you watch it so much, you almost become desensitized. And so you're like, I don't know if I even like this anymore by the time you watch it the ninth time in a row. I think for me, sometimes it's instantly like, wow, I'm so proud of this. I can't wait to share this. I'm so excited. But then there are a good amount of times where I watch something back and I'm like, I don't even know if I like this. Like, I just spent so much time on it and I'm not happy with it. But then I realized too that I've been editing it and sitting there for like 4 or 5 hours, and I'm watching it after I've already stared at it and listened to it that many times. And so sometimes if you just take a break from it, you move on to a different project or you step away from your computer and you watch it back, even say the next day, it gives you a whole different view on it. And you actually can be really proud of yourself for the work that you put into it. And you can look back and get a new set of eyes on it. Like, oh, maybe I don't like this effect. Let me try something different. And then just give it that extra time to let your brain relax and rewatch it for the first time in a sense. So I think that's important to remember when you're working on your own projects.
Yeah, because there are times I'm sure when you look back and you feel proud,
Right.
like, wow, I made this. But I think it's important, like, no piece of any type of work, whether it's creative or something more in a different field, analytical, it's like we are not perfect human beings, or just as human beings, we're not perfect. We don't make perfect work. Knowing that's okay too. Or if
Yeah,
you're not happy with certain things, you still made something, and that's something to be proud of.
I totally agree. It's be proud of even the little things if you're not happy with the picture as a whole, you know? But I think it's also really important to just remember, like you said, the work that you put into it, the new thing that you might have learned from it, whether it's, oh, I now know how to keyframe something, you know, or oh, I now know how to use effects and overlays. Like there's something you always learn, which is exciting and fun to learn from it. But also just to go with that too, I think even if you aren't always 100% happy with the piece that you made, I think sometimes it's important just to push yourself and share it and put it out there anyway. Because then you know, not for the validation of somebody else liking it necessarily, but somebody else may see it and that person might like that and then refer you to somebody else who is looking for that. So you never know, you know, it may not entirely be something you love, but it could be something somebody else loves that might be now a new client.
Hmm. I like that. And that's good for people who maybe will hold on to a project because it's not perfect or it's not up to their own standard. But
Absolutely.
it's like you made something, why don't you still put it out there or still put it on your Vimeo
Yeah.
or put it in your portfolio, and you never know. I think that's another part of the theme for today. It's like you never know where something will lead.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I think just put it out there and you'll gain more confidence too, like we talked about. Just push yourself to put it out there, even if you're not entirely happy.
Absolutely. All right, here's an interesting question that may be related. Uh, what is a failure or problem that you experienced that in retrospect it actually worked out for the better?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, man, I feel like that's almost something I have to think about. I like sometimes this happens with like this is more of a smaller example that happens every so often. It's not quite like a larger example, but say for example when I'm editing or even when I'm shooting, um if something happens where, oh, here's an example, let's do this. Okay, on set, this one time I was shooting this music video, and I brought my gimbal, and I decided, it's all charged, it's all good to go. I thought I did everything for the gimbal. I wanted those nice smooth shots I was going to use. And then I get there and I realized that the battery I had brought actually was not charged, but it's already time to shoot. And so I was really stressed out, but I didn't want to let the client know, like, hey, my battery is dead and I can't shoot it on the gimbal now. So I decided to shoot it handheld. And I had my little cage set up so it was a little more stable. And I know in post too, you can stabilize. So I was like, okay, let's make it work. And it actually turned out to be a lot better because instead of just having these specific movements, I was able to sort of like change the angles and do little slide ins and just have fun and run and gun shoot it almost, instead of like having this whole planned out thing. And the client seemed to be super happy with it. I actually was happier with that. And from that, I've sort of taken that into my future shoots of like, maybe I'll do a little bit of both instead of just shooting on the gimbal. Why don't I do half of it handheld and mix in the shots in the edit? So that would be like one example, for example.
No, I love that because it's something, as you said, it's something that you learned from. It's something that worked out way better than you thought in the
Right.
moment of like, oh no, like
Yeah.
my battery isn't charged. But I think it's also a good thing of when something starts to go wrong to stay level-headed because you never know how it could work out. It's like if you're like, oh my God, I don't have a battery, like this whole shoot, I don't know. And it's like freaking out isn't really perhaps the best course of action because you don't know, like, oh, it could work out. You don't know that yet.
At that moment too, if you're all flustered, it is a lot in your head. Like, I don't know what to do now. I don't want to show them that I'm freaking out, but like, if you just take that moment to be like, all right, I'm going to make it work anyway, because I'm here and this is what I have. Let's make it work. And they don't know any different. It's not like I told them this is exactly what we're doing. We're using the gimbal. So for them, like, they don't know how I was going to shoot it. So why not work with it? And at the end of the day, it was way cooler than I think it would have been if my gimbal was charged. So
I love that. And maybe that's also a reminder next time. It's like, okay, maybe I'll charge
right.
or double check and see if it charged.
Remember, I charge everything overnight and I do so.
Awesome. I like that story.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure if you know what this question means. Have you done film challenges?
I have not done any.
Okay.
What does the question say?
Someone wrote, do you have another film challenge planned? And are there potential dates for that? I'm not sure what that's.
No, I have not.
Okay.
But
okay.
Sounds
Okay, that's fine.
to do
That
it.
does sound fun. We love a good film challenge. Let's see, these shuffled around. Do you think honing in on a particular discipline is more beneficial than developing multiple skills? And I think that question is more like a being jack of all trades versus mastering maybe one thing that this is your area in filmmaking and in the industry that you want to be best at.
I would say that a mix of both is kind of a perfect world situation. There's no perfect situation, but I always hear it in my own experience. It's great to know a little bit of everything, because if you're on set and say your favorite part of everything is being a cinematographer, but you're on set as a PA, you're on set as a PA learning all these different things, doing your PA job, and then somebody who is the cinematographer working in that field might see you and say, oh, this person's really hardworking. They also know this, this, and this. I saw them help out with audio too while they were on set. So they know a little bit of everything. Let's see if they want to help us on this next project. And then I think too, it helps because, say, for example, like directing and editing go really well together. You always hear that, the director and editor work really closely on films and commercials and things like that, because they're seeing the vision and the editor is sort of finishing that vision. So I think as an editor, it's great to understand what it's like to direct and how to direct. And I think even as a cinematographer and editor, for example, if I'm editing, but I have no idea how to do anything when it comes to cinematography, things for me in the editing room are going to be a lot harder, I feel like, because I don't have any understanding of that. So I think if you can understand a little bit of everything, but also put that extra effort into the one aspect that's your favorite aspect or inspires you the most, I think then that's sort of the best way to do it. Like for me, I editing is my forte, that's my favorite thing, but I do a little bit of everything so I have an understanding as a whole. So I think the best way to do it is pick what you love, but learn everything. Pick up all the skills you can along the way.
I like that. And that becomes an attitude of always learning that is also perhaps a good stance to have. It's maybe a little bit humble on set, like, I want to learn, I'm here to grow. And that's probably something that's good to have too, to always be learning and growing when you're, no matter what side of the industry you're working in.
Right, of course. And I know my mentor too, he's 75 now, I think, and he says to this day, I'm always learning. There's always something new to learn, and that's the mentality to have. You don't ever want to be so confident that you know everything because you really don't. There's so much knowledge out there, nobody can learn everything, right? So if you're constantly learning, it not only helps you pick things up along the way, but also when you meet people, you're open to doing what they want to do and trying something different and growing.
I think it's a great way of meeting people and having almost conversation starters too. The more you know, the more you can talk about.
Yeah,
Even if it's like genres and something less technical, like maybe the film is on a certain subject and you have interest in the subject or what the film's about, or if you're doing music videos, knowing different music, it could be anything.
yeah. No, that's so true. It's a great conversation starter and it gives you that ability to relate to anybody on at least some aspect of something they're interested in and you're interested in. And then it turns into a friendship and a bond and a collaboration or whatever.
Awesome. All right, there's a couple more questions if we have time for them. Somebody is asking, in a market that now relies on social media and new technology, how do you stay adaptable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what it comes down to is take your time with adapting to everything because you don't want to just jump into the world of, say, like when TikTok came out. A lot of people jumped on it, but like for filmmakers or if you're in production or something and you were trying to figure out TikTok and your website and Instagram and all these things, like we talked about earlier, you're putting a little bit into everything. But if you kind of take your time with it and you get comfortable with one, not only posting, but you also have all of these apps and social media and equipment these days to choose from, it's almost like you want to choose what works for you. So you don't necessarily, you can adapt and understand everything as a whole under the umbrella, but you don't have to quite be part of all of that, if that makes sense. Like if you want to be part of TikTok, great, go be part of TikTok. But if you don't really like TikTok and you decide your page on Instagram is going to be full of your work and that's where your focus is, focus on that. Because at the end of the day, like we still can meet people and work with people outside of social media. Like that, very thankfully, has not gone away because like the word of mouth situation where people talk about you and this person mentions you and it goes on from there. That could be totally outside of social media. So I think it's just taking the time to find what you like the most and then kind of sticking with that. And then of
I
course,
like that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I just thought just try new things along the way, but kind of dip your toes into it and don't feel like you have to tackle everything at once.
Yeah, I think there's a taking off the pressure too of what you should do or what you should like or the social media platforms you should be on.
That's
Um,
yeah,
like you said, when you were in France, you were telling stories without even any words. It
ex-
was purely visual because it's a universal language. There's no pressure to even add that. How do you tell a story in the simplest way that other people understand? So almost a being true to who you are in filmmaking.
yeah,
And if who you are is not on TikTok, then why would you go on well go there? If who you are once if you like that,
right.
go for it. But if don't feel pressure to be, oh, everyone's there, I should go there too.
Exactly. And you're only going to do better if you're doing something that you're really happy doing. If you feel like you have to do it, like you feel pressured or you feel like, well, I got to do it for the views, but do you actually enjoy what you're putting out? Do you actually want to put it out? Like really just look at yourself and think like, what do I actually want to do with my work?
Awesome. All right, if we have time, I would like to ask one more question,
Yeah, of
which
course.
I think is a very good, perhaps it wraps both sides. It's the filmmaking and the mental health side of the conversation, which is how do you deal with imposter syndrome? And do you deal with it? But if so, how do you deal with almost that when you think about like, oh, should I be here? Am I doing, it's kind of like the questioning yourself in what you do. Is that something that ever goes through your head? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, like do you think that they mean that question in the sense of like you're doing something or you're on set as a role and you're like, do I belong here? Like, am I good?
Yeah, like I would imagine it like, do you do I belong here? Am I deserving to be at the table? Or like, oh, I'm maybe sometimes I face that when it's like, wow, I'm the youngest person in the conversation, or like I'm this or I'm that, and you start to question yourself belonging in the creative process. Is that something you've ever come across?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think it's totally normal to go through something like that because we all are going to cross that situation possibly sometime in our lives. I think, like you said, for me, the biggest thing was always like being the youngest person. So I'm 22 right now. I was doing this, I moved out to LA when I was 19. And thankfully, quickly, before COVID, I was able to make connections and go on sets and things like that. But for me, being 19, I was almost like, am I like, do people actually trust me to be here? Like, am I actually doing the work that's required? Like, do I even know what I'm doing or am I just winging it? But at the end of the day, it's always great to remember and remind yourself and maybe even tell a family member or a friend, like, hey, when I get in this moment, can you remind me this? Just remember that you are there for a reason. And whoever brought you on that set, or if you applied to this job and they accepted you, that means that whatever you did, whether it was the interview or meeting them or your resume or your work, that means it is good enough for what they wanted. And it's always good enough, always make sure it's good enough to you. But if they see it and they're like, this is what I want, and now you're on set and you're like, I don't know if I deserve to be here, you do. They wanted you there for a reason and they chose you to be there specifically for a reason. So it's just a matter of reminding yourself and trying to get out of your head and remember, like, being confident, like we talked about earlier, just being confident in the opportunity you're given. And even if you have to wing it, wing it. But you're there for a reason. So push through it and you're only going to learn from it. But yes, we definitely are all going to go through that. And I have gone through it a lot.
And I love that answer, and I also think it's a beautiful thing to bring it up in conversations like that, because usually when we think that, we think we're the only one who thinks that.
Right.
When usually there's a lot of people who share those, that it's like a collective thought of not necessarily feeling good enough, but to know, hey, I am good enough. I was brought here for a reason. I have an expertise. I have something of value to offer. And if that's a collective thing, then we can collectively remind one another, like, hey, you deserve a seat at the table.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just, yeah, it's coming together and remembering that and knowing we all go through it. And at the end of the day, you're here for a reason. So kick butt, push through, and show them, remind them, hey, I am here for a reason. Remind yourself, I'm doing this because I love it and I know I can do it.
Amazing. I love it. So we're we went a little bit over today, but I'm so glad to have met you, Katie. And I think this conversation was powerful, and it was a delight to hear your story and to share it with everybody on this call and people who are going to watch the recording.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to meet you too. And just, I loved all of your points and everything you had to say back to it and with me. And I think we're definitely on the same page. And I think, again, this is super awesome what they're doing with the Women in Film Project. And let's continue to build each other up. We're all in this together. We're all going through it together.
Yes, amen to that. Yeah, um, awesome. So, everybody who's still on the call, I'm Morgan Taylor. You can follow me at Morgan Taylor TV. Make sure you follow Katie and the work that she is doing and the Women in Film Project. We have more of these interviews coming from people from all over the world. So we're really excited to continue these conversations. So be sure to give us a follow, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right, take care.